Hello. All right, hello everyone. It's that time of the week. It's time for Premier Sim Gaming League's F9, and today we arrive at Zandvoort for round 10, and this is going to be my first race commentating on F9, so I'm not too familiar with the drivers. So I'll have to find out who is fastest, and I'm sure these guys have some amazing pace, and I'm definitely sure of that in a league like this with so many tiers and all of them being so competitive. So let's have a quick look at who's just gotten out on track. It looks like one of the Haas cars. That looks like LFR Indigo, and I've heard good things about this guy, so let's see if he can live up to those expectations. It looks like he's going to go out on these soft compound tires for the start of this qualifying session, and let's see how he does on these soft tires, because looks like a few people in the pit lane are thinking about going for the medium compound tires, but we'll have to see if they actually stick with that decision. Right now, RS Joshua and FVR Di Gueto look like they're both thinking about going on mediums, and it looks like Joshua is now out on mediums, and so is Di Gueto. So it looks like both those guys are going to be setting their first banker times on the medium compound tires. So we'll see how close they can get to the rest of the grid with those tires, as the deficit is usually around a full second sometimes, depending on if they get a good lap or not. But I think we're going to ride on board now with LFR Indigo and see how he does for his first time of the session. So across the line now, and on the run down to turn 1 with the DRS wide open. And coming into this turn 1, it looks like a couple of cars coming out of the pit lane. It looks like they don't get in the way, thankfully. And coming through these very, very fast corners, and now this banking corner, which is a very tight line, using plenty of the exit curb and carrying as much speed as he possibly can. And now we're going into this very fast downhill right-hander, and once again taking a nice and tight line, and he's taking these corners pretty nicely, and also using the exit curb on the left-hand side there, but not too much, because sometimes it can send you spinning. And it looks like he went for a little bit of a wider line there. Didn't really want to touch the curb, because, again, another very deadly curb. And into the third sector now. And it looks like he gets a nice little slingshot off of that corner to get the best exit possible now into the final turn. And this is looking like a pretty decent lap, but let's see what it is. So across the line, it actually looked like he tapped the wall there on the last corner, but it's going to be a 1:10.1, and that is the time to beat for the rest of the drivers. But it looks like Joshua has actually been disqualified from the session for going the wrong way, so he must have spun or something, and as he was trying to get it back on track, he's actually been disqualified from the session. So he was going to set his first lap on mediums, but yeah, sadly he is disqualified. So I think he definitely must have spun, and as he was trying to get his car back on track, the game thought he was going backwards and decided to disqualify him from the session. It looks like one of the Aston Martins of Di Gueto is now coming across the line, and on these medium compound tires, what is his time compared to LFR Indigo? He actually sets a time that's just 5/10 slower. So he's got very good pace on those mediums compared to Indigo, at least. So definitely a great lap from Di Gueto. And it looks like I'm going to have a difficulty pronouncing these names. It looks like I'm going to call this guy Neil, set a 1:10.8. So he's actually slower than Di Gueto on the medium compound tires, and he's on the soft. So it looks like Di Gueto has set a really good lap time. And as more drivers cross the line, it looks like the Williams of FBR Bajavi now crosses the line. It's a 1:17.7. So I think he probably abandoned his lap at some point in the session, as he actually gets a bit of wheel spin there off of the exit curb. And coming into this banking turn now, looks like a little bit of a lock up there on the front left tyre, and now going through this windy bit of a straight here into the middle sector now, and into this very fast downhill right-hander. Very, very hard to get right, but it looks like he actually got that quite nicely and carried quite a bit of speed too, and right now hitting all of his apexes and carrying plenty of speed and getting nice exits, and looks like he had a nice and tight line there, using plenty of the exit curve once again to carry as much speed as possible. But let's see what he can do on his first proper lap, because obviously that 1:17.7 wasn't a representative time, and looks like a little bit of wheel spin there coming out of the third sector. So onto the final corner now in the banking, and he's now got the DRS wide open. What kind of time is it going to be? It looks like it's going to be a 1:11.5, so quite a bit off LFR Indigo. But it looks like Liam has actually set a 1:10.5 on the medium compound tyres, which is just 4/10 off of LFR Indigo's 1:10.1. So it looks like he's done really well on those medium compound tyres, but since it is a short qualifying session, I'm sure he's going to come in for the soft compound tyres and set a much faster time on those tyres. It looks like CPI Wagenaar has set a 1:10.3 on the soft compound tyres, which is just 2/10 off of Indigo, and a pretty decent lap from him. And it looks like Sheep and Stiggy haven't set a lap yet, so let's ride on board with Sheep here. It looks like he's just started his lap, and we're going to get to see the entire lap here into the banking. It looks like a lot of drivers struggling with lockups going into there, which I could definitely see. It's very hard to get the trail braking right into there, but this is a no assist division, so they're going to have to live with it. Coming into this fast right-hander now, and through this next right-hander as well, and it looks like he's hitting these apexes quite nicely. Misses that one just a bit there, and doesn't use the full width of the track on exit. Goes a bit wide there, and not getting as tight on the apex as he probably would have liked to. So it doesn't look like the best second sector so far. Hits that curb quite nicely, and then once again using a bit of a slingshot exit to get as much speed out of the corner as possible into the final two turns now, and into the final banking turn. What kind of time is it going to be? It didn't look like the best second sector, so we'll have to see. So across the line it's going to be a 1:10.5, so not the worst time actually. So as you saw, he wasn't the best for the middle sector, but he still managed to set a 1:10.5. So definitely a lot of time to find, which is good, because that shows that he definitely has the pace and could be challenging for pole in this session. Like I said before, I'm not super sure on where everyone's pace is at, but it looks like Di Guedo has actually gone out on the soft compound tyres after going out on the mediums and setting a 1:10.6, going through the banking there, going quite deep. I think he messed up that corner, but does get a decent slingshot exit, so he's lost a bit of time on entry, but possibly gained a little bit on the exit. He's 2.5 up on his medium time. He sets a purple sector 1, so so far out of the first sector it's looking like a pretty decent lap there, and turning in quite early and hitting that curve before it, but missing that last apex. And how tight of a line can he get into here? It looks like a nice and tight line, and that is definitely going to gain him a bit of time in the middle sector. So coming into the third sector now, he sets another purple sector, and doesn't use as much curb there on the entry of that chicane type turn, but does use a little bit of curb on the second apex. Coming into the final turn now and the banking. What kind of time is this going to be? He set a purple first sector, he set a purple second sector. Can he set a purple third? Yes, he can. He sets a 1:10.1 and is 2/1000ths faster than LFR Indigo. But Indigo is currently on a lap and he's 1.5 up on his time. He set a purple sector 1, so it looks like he might be stealing that pole away from Di Guedo as soon as he got it, and hitting that apex quite nicely there, using the full width of the track on exit. Oh, goes a bit wide there into that left-hander. Doesn't take as tight a line as he most likely would have wanted to. And coming into the third sector, he's now lost a bit of time from there, but he's still up on his time, almost a tenth. If he can have a good third sector here, he could be looking at a 1:09. So let's see if he can get into the 1:09s and the final banking turn now, and opening up the DRS across the line. It is going to be a 109.8, so yes, he does go into the 109, so it looks like there was a lot of time to find there in the third sector, and he found it. He is now back on provisional pole with a 109.8, which is 3/10 faster than Di Guido's time. But it looks like Wagenaar is also on a lap. Actually, no, it looks like his red light is flashing, and he's possibly abandoned this lap time, possibly made a mistake at some point in the lap. But it does look like Liam is on a lap. He's just come through the first sector, and let's see how hard he can push coming into the middle sector now, into this downhill right-hander. It looks like he's actually set a purple sector 1, so a lot of drivers improving here. It looks like the track evolution is doing them favors here, but it looks like he actually used a bit too much exit curve there and misses the apex and decides to abandon his lap. So that's going to be Liam's lap over there. But it looks like Wagenaar has actually gone for another lap here. He's just come out of the first turn and coming into the second and third turn, but it looks like he's actually lost the car on the curb of the second turn there, and that sent him into the wall on the banking. So that is going to have to be his lap over, and he's going to have to come into the pit lane for new tyres and maybe even a front wing. He could have broken it with the contact he made with the wall there. So yeah, he's definitely going to have to abandon that lap and come in for a new wing. It looks like Sheep has just set a lap of a 1:10.5, or maybe he's on a lap now. I think he might actually be on a lap. So let's ride on board with him in the first sector, coming through the banking. Takes that quite nicely and actually manages not to lock up, using fourth gear through there, but getting quite a bit of wheel spin coming out of the banking. So that's definitely going to lose him a little bit of time on apex on the exit. He's 1/10 down on his time, and he goes a bit wide there coming out that fast right-hander, and that is going to be his lap over as he went into the gravel trap and is forced to abandon his lap. But Liam, up ahead of him, is on his lap right now. He's right behind him, and after Sheep messed up his lap, it looks like Liam is going to be finishing his lap, but it looks like he got quite a bit of wheel spin off of there and had to lift off of the throttle. He's now 2/10 down on his time, and I think that's going to be the second lap in a row that he's going to have to abandon. So he might be going for another lap here, but his tyres are 1 lap old, so I assume he might come into the pit lane for some fresh tyres, and I'd be right in saying so. So he is going to come in for a fresh set of soft tyres, and you only get 3 sets of soft tyres, so you have to make every set work. And I think a lot of the drivers are now in the pit lane. They'll probably be waiting to about 2 minutes left in the session to go out on their final pair of, or set even, of soft compound tyres. But it does look like Stiggy is currently on a lap. He's actually 3/10 up on his time here, and coming through his fast right-hander, it looks like he just got a bit too wide, went up on the exit curb, and actually invalidated his lap there. So that's going to be Stiggy's lap over, and the only other person who's currently on a lap is Di Guido. He was currently in a provisional P2, and he's going to be one to push quite hard to try and get ahead of Indigo in this qualifying session. So currently 5/1000ths off of his personal best first sector. So he's currently not improving, so he's going to have to push nice and hard in this middle sector. It looked like he took that turn quite nicely. Once again, not taking the tightest line, but a pretty tight line at least. So coming into the third sector now, he is now 1/100th up on his time. So really just not improving by much, just finding those small margins. And let's see how much time you can gain in these final 2 corners. Looks like a nice and tight line, but not hitting the apex on the second to last turn, because that curb can send you spinning along with a lot of other curbs on this track. And it looks like he's actually found a 10th.5 in the final sector there, and he's now just 1/10 off of Indigo's time, and the second driver to get into the 109s. And I think he can come back to the pit lane, and he might have one more set of soft compound tyres waiting for him, since he did go out on the mediums at the very start of the session. And it looks like Liam is going to be the next person to set a lap time, and coming around the final corner now to begin his lap. He's now got the DRS wide open. Let's see how hard he can push on this, what is most likely going to be his final lap of the session. So into turn 1 now, goes a little bit wide, doesn't get the tightest line, and doesn't use any of the exit curb on the exit of turn 1 into turn 2 and now 3, and once again goes a little bit wide there, and yeah, it looks like he's decided to abandon his lap time, or lap. So he is going to go for a bit of a cool down lap here and go for one more lap time at the end of the session, but I think that will be his last lap. So doesn't have many more opportunities in this qualifying session. It looks like Indigo is about to come round the final 2 turns to begin his final lap of the session. So let's see how fast he can go, leaving the start of this lap very late there, and accelerating basically on the exit of the second last turn. So into turn 1 now, let's see how well he can take this. Takes a pretty decent line through there, but decides not to use too much exit curb, so maybe a bit late on the throttle. Just has to ease into it with the traction control being off, and coming through the final bit of the first sector. Let's see how much he is actually improving now coming out of the first sector. It looks like he's actually down on his time by 7/100ths of a second, and I think DeGuido has one more set of soft compound tires, so he really needs to find some time in the middle and final sector and really getting up on the curb there of that right-hander and taking a very, very tight line. So it looks like he might find a decent bit of time here in the middle sector, but we'll have to see. So coming out of the middle sector, he's now a 1/10.5 up on his time. He's found about 2/10 in that middle sector, and let's see if he can put this lap together with the final sector now, and takes a very tight line into that second last turn. It's all about tight lines in this track, and trying to stay away from most of the curves, but it looks like he's actually abandoned his lap time, or maybe he's run out of fuel. I'm not really sure what's happened there, but I think he was improving on his time, and he just decided to abandon his lap. So he's definitely not run out of fuel, and that's going to be his session over. And it looks like DeGuido's session is now over too, because he's decided that either he hasn't got another set of soft tires, or he hasn't got enough time to set another lap. Nobin in the AlphaTauri actually says a 1:10.2, which is going to put him on the second row of the grid. And it looks like Liam has just set a 1:09.9, the third man to dip into the 1:09s. He is on provisional front row, and there's not many people that can actually take this away from him now. But it looks like Wagner, who's looking quite strong at the start of the session, and he's about to start his final lap now with the track evolution at its best. So taking a nice and tight line into there, gets a little bit of wheel spin, just getting a bit too early on the power there out of turn 1 into the turn 3 banking now, and goes a little bit deep, but not too deep, and still gets a good enough exit. So coming to the middle sector now, how much is he up on his time? He's a 10th up on his time. He's going to need to improve by a little more than that for pole position. Hits a bit of the gravel there, turns in a bit too early for that right-hander. That's going to lose him a little bit of time, but takes a lot of curb there on the apex of that right-hander. And a very, very tight line, getting nice and close to the curb, getting on the power just a bit too early, and that is going to give him a little bit of wheel spin out of that turn. He's 7/100ths up on his time. He's not improving enough for pole position, but he could steal P4 away from Nobin. We'll have to see, as Sheep pulling out of the way there for Wagner. It looks like he's actually turned in a bit too early, and that is going to be the end of his session, because he's invalidated on the exit of the second to last turn, and that is going to be Wagner's session over. And it looks like Sheep is now pulling into pit lane, so that is going to be qualifying over for round 10 here in the Netherlands. And LFR Indigo with a 1:09.8 is going to be on pole position for this race, and he's going to be starting alongside Liam, who set a 1:09.9, and it's just 14/1000ths ahead of DeGuido. So he's going to have Nobin behind him with a 1:10.2. So only the top 3 were actually able to get into the 1:09s. Wagner in P5 with Nobin alongside him in P4. And in P6 we have Black Mamba starting alongside Neil. Sheep in P8 with Bajbi right behind him, and Stiggy actually setting a lap time on the mediums, so he's going to have to start on the mediums in P10, and hopefully the alternate strategy actually helps him out in the race. And it looks like Nath and Joshua couldn't set a time because Joshua was disqualified for going backwards on track, and I'm not too sure why Nath hasn't set a time there. But that is it. That is going to be the end of qualifying. With only 12 drivers, everyone who set a lap is in the top 10, so most drivers will be starting on the soft compound tyres. But that was definitely a very exciting qualifying session there. And it looks like Indigo has just edged out Liam by 1/10 of a second, and he's going to be starting on pole position for this Netherlands Grand Prix. So I already can't wait for this race. It's going to be my first time commentating here, and apparently F9 hasn't had a commentator for a while, so I'm glad to bring it back to the streams. And it looks like the drivers are now just loading in and getting ready to start their formation lap to warm up their tires and brakes before they get going for the actual race itself. So coming onto the track now, it actually looks like overcast conditions. We could see rain this race, which would definitely spice things up, and it could help the bottom three, who all have the choice of starting on the medium compound tires. And if they can start on mediums and maybe bring it to the rain, they would probably be on the best strategy. But I don't know if there's rain. I'm just guessing from these overcast conditions. So let's see how all of these guys do on their race start. I think Indigo is definitely going to be wanting to look for a good start and to maintain track positions. If I'm not mistaken, there's just 2 DRS zones on this track, and one at the end of the middle sector and the other on the pit straight. It's definitely hard to overtake on the second DRS straight coming into the third sector, as there's not a lot of space coming into that chicane, chicane-esque corner, and then the pit straight. I think that's where we're going to be seeing most of the overtakes down into turn 1, and the person with the inside line has to be very careful not to touch the inside curb, because that could end their race. So here we go. This is Indigo just warming up his soft compound tires, and he's going to have Liam right alongside him on the grid, and these guys are going to probably be pushing each other for the entire race, but we'll have to see. And we have Diguedo in P3 and Nobin in P4, CPI Wagoner in P5, and Black Mamba in P6, Neil in P7. It looks like Indigo has actually been trying to heat up his tires a little bit too aggressively there on the formation lap, and he's actually had a bit of a spin there coming onto the second DRS straight, but I guess that just means his tires are going to be nice and warm for the race start. But he's now behind Sheep on the formation lap, so everyone's going to have to wait a little bit longer for him to actually line up on the grid. So here are the tire choices that everyone has gone with. It looks like everyone outside of the top 10 and Stiggy, because he did qualify on the medium compound tires, are going to be starting on the mediums, and maybe they've gone with the alternate strategy, or maybe there is rain and they're going to try and stretch the mediums to the rain, but only time will tell, as it looks like Liam is now lining up onto the grid, and rest of the drivers following him in, and LFR Indigo looks like he's starting on pole position, but he's going to be the last person to line up on the grid now. So it looks like the grid are all ready for the race start, and here we go now. It looks like we have 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 red lights. They're gone and we're away. What kind of start is it for the top 2 on the front row? And looks like Indigo has a pretty decent start. It looks like Liam is trying to go down the inside into turn 1, and does not look like he's going to make that move stick. It's not the best start for Nobin compared to the top 3. It looks like one of the Williams is up there, or maybe that's a William of Bajabi, who's gone a bit wide there on the exit of turn 1. But it looks like Indigo is going to maintain the lead for now. Liam in P2 with Diguedo in P3, Nobin in P4, Wagner in P5. So it looks like the top 6 haven't made any position changes so far in this race. but a lot of drivers getting quite close to each other. It looks like Nat, who started in P11, is now up to P8 on the medium compound tires. That's been a dream start for him, and I'm sure he's going to be really happy with that. And now all he has to do is stick with the medium compound tire runners. It looks like Sheep is getting quite close to the back of Black Mamba. He's going to go down the inside into the third sector, and they leave each other's space. He now has the outside line for the second turn, and he's going to have another go down the inside. No, he's not. He's just going to stick back into the slipstream of Black Mamba ahead of him. So he's currently in P7 in this race, and he's got Nath on the mediums right behind him, and Indigo has now crossed the line, set the fast lap of the Grand Prix. It looks like Indigo and Liam have gone side by side. It looks like Liam's actually taken the lead of the race away from Indigo now on lap 2, and it looks like Liam will be leading, but the DRS will be enabled next lap, so maybe Indigo can stick behind him for now, save up some ERS and launch an attack once the DRS is enabled. But it looks like he's under a bit of pressure now from De Guedo, and into this fast right-hander. It does not look like De Guedo is going to have him a look down the inside, but he's getting quite close to the back of him. Just 2/10 is the gap. It looks like he's actually fallen behind a bit there coming into this middle sector, but this is now the DRS rate. DRS has not been enabled on lap 2, so all these drivers are going to have to use to try and overtake each other is the ERS. It looks like Nobin is actually 8/10 behind De Guedo, so hopefully he can stay within the DRS. He's going to have to push quite hard to stay within that DRS, but he really doesn't want to lose it, because that can lose you almost a second a lap. But it looks like the drivers are about to start lap 3 now, and the DRS is going to be enabled for the next DRS straight. It looks like De Guedo has actually set the fast lap of the Grand Prix, so really showing that he's got some good pace there. But it looks like Indigo has actually spun into turn 1, and I think De Guedo actually made contact with the back of him. So De Guedo possibly braking a bit too late into turn 1, and yes, he's got wing damage from the contact that he made with Indigo, and that has now put him outside of the DRS of Liam, and he's going to have to box for a new front wing. So it looks like he's just trying to follow Indigo too closely, and he's broken too late into turn 1. He's broken his wing too, and he's taken Indigo out of the race. Essentially, he is now 4.2 seconds behind the closest car of Bajabi, and all of these cars being in a DRS train, that's really hurt him in this race. But because of this incident, it's allowed Liam to actually just get away from the rest of the drivers, and he is now the only person that's not in the DRS train, as Wagner, trying to follow a bit too closely there, actually made contact with the back of De Guedo. It looks like a yellow flag in the middle sector, and who is that? It looks like Nat has actually had a spin in the final sector, and it looks like his tires are a bit overheated, and he spun it again. So he was looking so good in this race up into P8, which would have been P6 after the incident between Indigo and De Guedo, and he was on mediums as well, so he's looking so good. But sadly he's now fallen down to last place, and De Guedo and looks like Joshua and Neil are both in the pit lane. It looks like they both had to repair their front wing, so it looks like De Guedo was causing some problems since he was going so slow with no front wing. He's actually given wing damage to Neil and Joshua, so those are going to be the bottom 3 in this race. And De Guedo was looking so good. He was in the top 3. He was following very closely to the back of Indigo, but he's now going to have to stretch these mediums to the end of the race, and his tire wear is going to be through the roof. But he might be looking at a 2-stop, because 32 laps on the mediums is definitely going to be very difficult, and you are going to have absolutely no pace at the end of the Grand Prix compared to everyone else who's going to be on a lot fresher medium compound tires. Moving back to the front of the grid, Liam has now actually pulled away from the rest of the grid. The gap is now 2.4 seconds, as it actually looks like Wagner, with the power of the DRS, has set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix of a 1:12.8, and overtaken Nobin and gotten up into P2. But if Nobin and Wagner actually work together here, they could possibly catch up to Liam, because the gap is now down to 2.1 seconds, whereas it was 2.4 seconds. But if they both use each other's DRS, they could possibly catch up to the leader and battle for the win. So it looks like Nobin is able to follow Wagner into this middle sector, and now into the final sector, but before we get to the final sector, we have to get onto this DRS straight. But it looks like Wagner has actually got some really good pace here at this stage of the Grand Prix. He's just 1.7 seconds behind Liam, so he's actually gaining time on Liam, and maybe he can get into the DRS of Liam all by himself, because it looks like Nobin is dropping back quite a bit. He's now 7 tenths behind Wagner, and Wagner's really pushing hard here. I'm sure he's using plenty of the ERS, and as you can see, I would be right in saying that he's down to under 20% ERS and still using it. His red light is now going to be flashing as he's under 10% ERS. He's gone for a big push lap there. He's tried to break the DRS from Nobin, and he's really going to have to push hard here in this first sector and the middle sector if he wants to break it. He just needs to pull out 2 more tenths on Nobin behind before he can break it. But if Nobin saves up his ERS, which he hasn't done, he's also below 20% ERS. So if Wagner can break this DRS, it's really going to leave Nobin vulnerable to Black Mamba behind him. So right now the gap is just 9 tenths, and we're coming up on the DRS straight. If so long as Nobin can take this corner quite nicely, he's going to stay in the DRS. But as we come to the detection point, it looks like he was just about in 9 tenths there, but he hasn't gotten the DRS, so he was actually outside of a second there, and Wagner has used up all of his ERS to break the DRS, and he's managed to do it, so he is now outside of the DRS of Nobin behind, and he's going to be able to push freely in the clean here to try and catch up to the leader of Liam. In this Grand Prix, Nobin is now going to be very vulnerable to Black Mamba behind him. Black Mamba has the DRS wide open, whereas Nobin has now got no ERS and DRS. So he's really going to be losing a lot of time to Black Mamba and Wagner. So Wagner is now just 1.4 seconds behind Liam, and pushing quite hard to try and get into that DRS. If we actually look back down the grid, it looks like Indigo is currently in P8, and he's trying to find his way past Sticky here, who's on the medium compound tires and the alternate strategy. And Indigo thankfully didn't break his wing like Di Guedo did, so he still has a better chance than Di Guedo in this race, but he's lost a lot of time to the leader of Liam. And as you can see, the gap to Liam is 9.8 seconds, so he's really going to have to push hard for the rest of this race. And he also needs to get past Sticky here, who's on the medium compound tires and really slowing him up. He's going to have the DRS here coming into the third sector, so let's see if he can make the move. And he has a look to the inside, but he's not going to be able to go for that move. He's just a bit too far back. Didn't get the best exit off of the turn that came into the DRS straight, but he now has another DRS straight right after it on the pit straight, and hopefully that will give him enough power and straight line speed to actually overtake Stiggy here. So he's got the DRS open, and it looks like it's going to be a nice and easy move into turn 1, and he's going to be able to make it stick before the braking zone. So Indigo is now up into P7. He's got plenty of work left to do if he wants to at least get on the podium in this race. And it looks like Di Guedo is actually caught up to Nath here, and he's overtaken him into turn 1 on his fresher medium compound tires, but his strategy is going to be a bit distorted compared to everyone else's because of that wing damage in the early stages of this Grand Prix. And we'll see if he stretches these mediums to the end or if he's going to go for a 2-stop. It's definitely going to be interesting to see. But as you can see, he has this actually sets a purple sector 2, as it looks like Black Mamba and Nobin went side by side. And I don't know if they made contact for riding with Di Guedo, but it looks like Nobin has dropped back quite a bit there, so I'm not too sure what's happened. Maybe he's made a mistake off of the exit just before the DRS straight, because he was pushing a bit too hard to try and keep Black Mamba behind. But Black Mamba has now moved up into P3, and Nobin's teammate Sheep is now up into P4. Wagner has actually caught up to the DRS of Liam ahead of him, so I'm sure his strategy will most likely be to save up the ERS and let Liam pull him along with the power of the DRS and conserve the tires maybe a little bit too. So it looks like Di Guedo on the medium compound tires is really pushing hard at this stage of the Grand Prix, and looks like those tires have come alive 4 laps later as he sets the fast lap of the Grand Prix. He's in P9 now, but he is a full pit stop behind the leaders, and looks like another a yellow flag. It looks like Bajavi has actually spun there in the middle sector. Has he got wing damage? No, it does not look like he's lost any of his end plates, but that is going to lose him a lot of time, and it's also going to induce a lot of wear to his tires, because the tire temperatures are going to raise after a spin like that. But I'm not too sure what happened. I don't know if he went wide or actually spun, but he's now down into P8 on those soft compound tires, and that's a big disadvantage for him. I think that's his second spin this race. It looks like Liam has made the call to come in for the medium compound tires on lap 10. So he's going to try and go for the undercut on Wagner. Is Wagner going to respond? He clearly wants to go for the undercut so he can possibly break the DRS to Wagner behind. And coming out of the pit lane here, is he going to have to deal with any traffic? No, it does not look like he will, although he's eventually going to have to catch up to Stiggy, who's on 9-lap-old medium compound tires. He's been on them since the start of the race. It looks like Bajavi has actually come into the pit lane for medium compound tires. It does not look like he's broken his wing, but after that mistake in the middle sector, maybe his tire wear went through the roof, so he's had to box for the medium compound of tire, and he's now in last place in P12. And it looks like Nobin is following quite closely to the back of his teammate. They're both on soft compound tires and yet to pit, but he's got the DRS on his teammate, and will he be looking for a move? Because right now Sheep has the pit lane priority over Nobin, and if they both box on the same lap, it's really not going to help out Nobin, because they will have to double stack. But it looks like Indigo is almost caught up to the DRS of Nobin, so he's been pushing nice and hard, and it's clearly paying off, as it looks like Nobin's teammate Sheep has actually come into the pit lane now, and he's going to put on some medium compound tires. But it looks like, I'm not too sure of the strategy here around Zandvoort, but it looks like Liam has gone for a very, very aggressive undercut compared to the rest of the grid. Wagner is not going to respond to this undercut, and he's going to try and go for the overcut instead, and he's going to stretch these softs so that he can have fresher mediums at the end of the race. We'll have to see how that strategy works out for him. Liam is just 16.8 seconds behind Wagner, so a pit stop is around 20 seconds, so he's going to have quite a big gap here once Wagner actually comes into the pit lane. But Wagner is probably assuming that the fresher medium compound tires are going to do him wonders compared to Liam, or maybe Liam's tires will be absolutely falling off a cliff at the end of the race because this is such an aggressive undercut. But this is going to be his first actual flying lap, and his first chance to maybe set a fastest lap of the Grand Prix. So he's coming through the final two turns now, and let's see what kind of lap time he actually sets here as he comes out of the final turn. What kind of lap time is it going to be? It's going to be a 1:12.6. So he's going very, very fast, pushing nice and hard. If I'm not mistaken, the fastest lap of the Grand Prix is a 1:12.6. So he's just set a lap time that's 4 1,000ths off the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. So he's got some really good pace here, and he's showing it. And this is really going to help him up against Wagner, as it looks like Wagner still hasn't boxed yet, so he's really going for a big overcut. And it looks like the only two people that have actually boxed off of the soft compound tires and onto mediums are Liam and Sheep, and also Bajavi. So yeah, it looks like all three of those guys going for a very aggressive undercut. But Wagner is now coming to the final two turns, and he's going to come to the pit straight. Is he going to box 4 medium compound tires on lap 12? Let's see here. Does he pull into the pit lane? No, he does not. So he's staying out another lap. So he's going to have way fresher tires than Liam behind him. But Liam is going to have quite a big gap. So looks like Indigo is actually going to go for a little bit of an undercut compared to the top 3 now in this race, as he comes in for the medium compound tires. And he's going to have some pushing to do on these tires. And as you can see, the gap between himself and Liam is still quite a big gap. And they've also got 3 cars between them. But let's see what the gap between him and Sheep was, because he was behind Sheep before he came into the pit lane. The gap was about 2.5 seconds, and the gap is now 2.8 seconds. So he's actually made the undercut work quite well, or overcut work quite well compared to Sheep, and he has the undercut on the top 3. So Indigo really trying to make a good recovery here, and it looks like it's working out quite nicely for him. Nat on the 12 lap all medium compound tires and the alternate strategy is now behind Diguedo, who's also on a bit of a weird strategy after having to box on lap 4, if I'm not mistaken. And it actually looks like Wagner comes into pit lane for the medium compound tire, so he's decided that this is a lap to box. But Black Mamba is actually deciding to stay out, so he's going for a very big undercut compared to the rest of the drivers that he was battling, and he's really stretching these soft tires, and it looks like he is going to be the last person to box for the medium compound tires. It looks like Liam has now caught up to the DRS of Stiggy ahead of him, who is the lead runner of the alternate strategy, with Nath being the only person on the same strategy as him. But Black Mamba, yeah, it's a very interesting strategy. It looks like his teammate is 7.8 seconds behind, so Black Mamba is going to be quite a bit off of Liam once he actually decides to box for the medium compound tires. So Liam's going to be wanting to get past Stiggy here, and he's got the DRS on this next straight. So let's see if he actually goes for a move into the third sector. No, he's going to hold off for now, and he's most likely going to make the move on the pit straight here. So let's keep watching, and he's now coming into the final 2 turns, following nice and closely to the back of Stiggy, and now coming through this final turn. He goes for a bit of a wider line there on the banking, but he's now got the DRS. He's going to make the move into turn 1. Can he make the move stick before the braking zone? And yes, he cuts across Stiggy to cover off any moves going into turn 1. So he's now got the position and up into P1. Black Mamba finally decides to pit for the medium compound tire. So let's look at the grid as it stands. Liam is now in the lead of the race and has 0 stops left to go, and his closest rival Wagner is now 3 seconds behind him, but does have about 5 lap fresher medium compound tires. So he's going to be able to push nice and hard now for these next few laps, and we'll have to see if he can maybe set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, secure that extra point, and show that he has enough pace to actually catch up to Liam, as he's catching up to Stiggy quite quickly. Could he get the DRS for the pit straight, because that would really help him out to try and go for a fastest lap, and also just to catch up to Liam ahead of him. But it looks like the gap is 1.7 seconds to Stiggy ahead of him, so he's not going to get the DRS on this next straight. But as we look through the field, it looks like Nat is still sticking with Diguedo, so these two guys are sticking quite closely together, and it's going to be interesting to see if Diguedo actually goes to the end of the race on those medium compound tires. It looks like CPI Wagner has actually set the fast lap of the Grand Prix of a 1:12.2. Stiggy is now boxed on lap 16 as Indigo says a fast lap of 1:11.8, and that is an absolutely amazing time, and he's really pushing hard on those medium compound tires. He's now behind Black Mamba, who was in the top 6. So he's making great progress in this race. Sticky has decided to box for the hard compound tires, so he's going for a medium hard strategy, being a bit more conservative in this race. And yeah, I think Indigo's pushing nice and hard here. He's got a bit more wear on his tires compared to Black Mamba, but he's got a lot more pace, it seems, as it looks like Nath has actually made the move on Diguedo in a bit of an unconventional spot, but maybe Diguedo's let him go so that he can benefit from the power of the DRS. So he's still falling quite close behind, as it looks like Indigo with the power of the DRS has caught up quite a bit, and Nobin is now getting himself into this battle. So Nobin has actually lost quite a few positions, and Indigo just taking the racing line, as Black Mamba was put offline a bit there. And it looks like Indigo is going to go down the inside into the final turn, and he gets the boost of the DRS on the pit straight, and he's going to make that move coming into turn 1 now. So he is now up into P6, and Nobin is right behind Black Mamba. But Black Mamba has the fresher tires. He should have more pace at this stage of the race, but it looks like Indigo is absolutely flying on those medium compound tires. This next target is now Sheep, who's in P5, and it looks like there are now no cars between Wagner and Liam, but it looks like the difference in wear between the tires isn't that big, because Wagner really isn't catching that much on Liam ahead of him. So maybe the undercut was the best strategy, and maybe Liam could get a quite easy race win here. He's got a 3-second gap to Wagner behind him. Wagner is going to have to start pushing soon enough. And if we actually look at his ERS, he's already been pushing quite hard, but he hasn't really been able to make a dent in Liam's lead. But he's going to continue to push and hopefully catch up to him in the final few laps of the race. It looks like Indigo is actually getting quite close now to the DRS of Sheep ahead of him, and Black Mamba is quite close to losing it, but Black Mamba is going to have it for the straight because he was inside a second for the detection point, and Black Mamba is really benefiting from this DRS because Nobin behind isn't able to attack him on the DRS straights because Black Mamba gets that extra straight line speed. It looks like Indigo is now just 2/10 out of the DRS of Sheep, and now just 1/10, so I think he will be getting it for the next DRS straight, and he's going to be looking to overtake him. It looks like Sheep went for quite an aggressive undercut along with Liam, and now Indigo has 2 lap fresher medium compound tires, but as we're seeing with Wagner and Liam, maybe that doesn't make as big of a difference as we thought, but we'll have to see. And actually coming onto this DRS straight, it does not look like Indigo has gotten the DRS, so it looks like Sheep is trying to pull up the pace here and go a little bit faster to try and keep Indigo out of that DRS. But we're approaching the next DRS detection point now. He's on the teetering edge, and as we come into this final turn, it looks like he's managed to get within that DRS of a 1 second gap, and he's going to get the DRS on Sheep. Sheep trying to break the slipstream on the pit straight, but it looks like Indigo is now in the DRS, and it's going to leave Sheep quite vulnerable. And let's see how early on Indigo can make a move and this overtake to try and catch up to the rest of the grid. And Nas still has to make a pit stop, and I'm not sure if DeGuedo does. If he doesn't, I think he's going to have a lot less pace than the rest of the drivers. It looks like Bajavi has actually spun off in the middle sector there, as we can see, riding on board with LFR Indigo. Just saw him there on the left side. Looks like he might have actually broken his wing there too, and he is 1 minute behind the rest of the grid, and that is a shame to see, as it looks like he might actually be lapped here, as Sticky is coming up on the back of him, and I'm not sure what's going on there. I think he might have actually disconnected from the session. No, he hasn't. He's just lost his front wing, so he's going to have to box for a new front wing, but he's now a lap down in this session, and that is a shame to see. But moving back to the battle for P5, it looks like Indigo is going to have the DRS for this pit straight, but he's not going to be able to make the move, and Nobin also has a DRS on the straight, but he's also not going to be able to make the move. So Black Mamba maintaining P7 and Sheep maintaining P5 in this session. DeGuedo is still keeping the gap nice and low to Nath ahead of him, and looks like those two drivers are pushing quite hard to be with each other, and are actually keeping themselves outside of the DRS of the drivers behind, who have a lot fresher medium compound tires. So yeah, it really doesn't look like the difference in wear between the mediums is that exaggerated on this track, at least. But it looks like Sheep is almost in the DRS of DeGuedo, and if he could have gotten it there, it would have really helped him defend. So Indigo really needs to make the move now or never if he wants to make the move. So as you can see, coming into the third sector, he's not going to be able to make that move. And if Sheep gets the DRS here on the cars ahead, it's really going to help him out. He's very, very close to the DRS now. But it looks like he might not get it coming onto this main DRS straight. So that was his chance for the best defense up against Indigo. But he squandered it. He's big swerving here on the main straight, and it's actually probably losing him time. But as you can see, it looks like Indigo is going to try and go around the outside into turn one. He's not going to be able to make the mistake, and it looks like Sheep has actually pushed him off there into the gravel and not really left any space on the exit of turn one. And that is going to lose Indigo quite a bit of time, and hopefully not a front wing too. It doesn't look like either of his end plates are damaged, so hopefully he doesn't have any wing damage. But that was an interesting defense from Sheep, to say the least. He's still in P5, and he's not able to catch up to the DRS of the cars ahead of him, which have 7 lap older medium compound tyres. So Indigo is now back in the DRS, and I don't know if he's going to follow in the slipstream of Sheep this time. It looks like Sheep has actually decided to let him through, and Indigo has decided to let him through again, so it looks like they've just lost each other a lot of time, and Sheep has obviously seen that his defense wasn't the fairest, so he was going to give it back on the DRS straight so that he could get DRS for the main pit straight, but Indigo has decided to keep Sheep ahead of him, because now he can make the move into turn 1 around the outside. Once again, he makes the move stick before the braking zone, but that sportsmanship between the two drivers, letting each other go, has actually allowed Black Mamba to catch up to the DRS of these two drivers, and that is going to really help him out in defending against Nobin behind, which he's been able to keep behind for the past few laps, and has maintained P7 in this race. So looks like Nath is still on those medium compound tires, so it looks like I don't know who's with him. Stiggy was the man who's on the same strategy as Nath, and he boxed for the higher compound tires instead of stretching them a few more laps to go on the soft tires. But Nath has been on those medium compound tires for 21 laps now. He's going to be thinking of boxing soon, but most of the drivers boxed about lap 13 or 14, so we should see Nath boxing around this lap. He's going for a bit of an overcut on those mediums. Does he decide to box this lap? No, he does not. He's going to continue on those medium compound tires, and Indigo is going to continue to catch, but it looks like he's under a bit of pressure from Sheep, and he's just going to let him go because he's going to try and go for the switchback coming out of turn 1 here. Can he get a good exit? And it looks like he can, and he's going to have the inside line for turn 2, and he's going to make the switchback defense work on Sheep. So that was a great defense from Indigo, making that switchback work and maintaining P5 in that race, in this race. And the two drivers up ahead of him, I assume they still have to box in this race. So right now, this is the battle for a net podium in this race, and Indigo is really defending as hard as he can, and also being patient with his defense, as we saw with that switchback there. He just let Sheep go a bit deep into turn 1, trying to make the move down the inside, and just favoured his exit over entry, and that was a really good defense from him. He's now catching up quite a bit, and it looks like actually the driver in fourth, DiGuido, on those really old medium compound tires, 9 laps older than Indigo's, is able to keep Indigo out of his DRS. So maybe he'll bring those tires to the end, unless they really start to fall off. Maybe there's a point where the medium compound tires actually start to get really slow in this race, but right now he has quite similar pace to Indigo behind him, so maybe he'll think about staying on those mediums to the end of the Grand Prix, in which case Indigo needs to push nice and hard to actually get within the DRS of DiGuido and actually overtake him, because DiGuido right now is just being pulled along by Nath, who's in P3 and still has to box for soft compound tires, and he's leaving that actually coming into the pit lane quite late. He's been on those mediums for 23 laps now, and there's going to be 12 laps left at the end of this lap, so he'll have to be thinking about coming in for soft compound tires soon enough, and it's going to be interesting to see where that puts him, because it looks like he's going to have quite a big gap to the drivers behind. And as I've been talking about this, it looks like Indigo has actually caught up to the DRS of DiGuido, so maybe the time for the mediums to fall off is now, or maybe DiGuido's made a mistake because he's also lost DRS to Nath ahead of him, so he's possibly made a mistake at some point in his lap. It looks like Nobin has made a mistake there in the third sector. Maybe he's gotten a bit too early on the power, maybe he's gone wide out of the second last corner, maybe he's made contact with another driver, I'm really not sure, but this has really helped out Nath, because there is now a safety car. Nath can come onto the soft compound tires, and it looks like Black Mamba actually follows him in, so does RS Joshua, and Neil comes in, so does Sticky. They're all going to come in for soft compound tires. It looks like this has really helped out Nath. He is now in P6, and if I had to guess, most of the drivers ahead of him will be boxing for the soft compound tires, because the difference between the mediums and the softs is quite big at this track. Or maybe it's not, because we did see DiGuido in qualifying, set a 1:10.5, which in the end was 7 tenths off of the pole time, which is absolutely amazing lap on the medium compound tires. So maybe the difference isn't as big. We'll have to see if the top 5 all decide to stay on the medium compound tires. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what strategy they go with. But as we can see here, Liam is on 14 lap old mediums, so I definitely think he'll be coming in for some fresh softs. I think the only 2 people that would be worth staying out on mediums for is probably Nobin and Indigo. Because if they box, they will most likely come out behind people like Nat. So there you can see Liam comes into the pit lane for soft compound tires, and so does Wagner. And he's going to come in for soft compound tires. Diguedo comes in for soft compound tires. This has also really benefited Diguedo, who had to make another stop in this race anyways, most likely. And he's now got the perfect opportunity to come in for soft compound tires. And this has also helped out Wagner, and it's helped out a lot of people, but it has not helped out Liam, because he made a 3-second gap to Wagner behind, and he's now going to completely lose that gap. But there's only going to be so many laps for Wagner to actually overtake Liam, and the DRS is enabled 3 laps after the safety car has come into the pit lane. So in the end, there's only going to be about 5 laps of DRS racing for Wagner to make some overtakes, and Nat as well has put himself in a great position. He's now up into P3, but it's now a completely level playing field. Everyone is in an equal car on soft compound tires, and they're all going to have 100% ERS, and it's going to be a sprint to the end of the Grand Prix, as these guys don't have to worry about conserving the tires, because these softs, as we saw at the start of the race, can go for about 14 laps, and there's only 10 laps left, so these guys are going to be pushing to the absolute maximum. So let's actually look at the order here. Liam is still in the lead of this race, but he's got Wagner and the rest of the grid right behind him, and they all have fresh soft compound tires. Nat has been able to move himself up into P3 using that alternate strategy, and going for that overcut has really helped him out. Diguedo is in P4, and even with that wing damage on lap 1, he's been able to pull himself back up into top 4 on the fresh soft tires. Indigo, after making contact with Diguedo on lap 1, has managed to make a decent recovery up into P5, and will be looking to make a few overtakes on the safety car restart, and maybe even get on the podium if his pace is good enough. We definitely saw that it's good enough in the qualifying, and I've only heard good things about this driver. Nobin is in P6 after his teammate DNF'd and actually caused this safety car. It looks like Black Mamba has dropped down, or maintained P7 technically. RS Joshua, after being disqualified in the qualifying, is now in P8 in this race. Neil in P9 and Stiggy in P10. So since there's only 12 racers in this race, and 2 of them DNF, there's only 10 runners left. So long as the drivers finish the race, they will be getting a minimum of 1 point. So I think a lot of drivers will just be trying to play it safe on the safety car restart, but I don't think maybe people like Wagner, because he wants to get ahead of Liam and take the lead of the race, because maybe P2 is a good spot to be in too, because once the DRS is actually enabled, he'll be able to save up the ERS and launch an attack towards the end of the Grand Prix. But we'll have to see how that all works out, as the safety car is now coming into the pit lane. We are going to ride on board with Liam to actually watch him use the safety car restart to his advantage. How late does he go, or how early does he go? He has to at least wait for the safety car to come back into the pit lane. As you can see there on the minimap, still making his way down the pit straight and into the pit lane. So let's see how good of a restart Liam can get. Is he going to go late? Is he going to try and distract the drivers? But it looks like he's just gone straight away there, and hasn't really made it a surprise to anyone. Wasn't pretending to heat up his tires or anything. So into turn 1, it looks like Elfire Indigo is actually going to go down the inside of Diguedo, and really pushing him to the exit curve there, but he's going to concede the position coming into turn 2 and just let Diguedo maintain P4 for now. He does not want to break his wing at this stage of the Grand Prix, as we watched that from the onboard of Nobin. But it looks like Liam has been able to maintain the lead of the race with Wagner not predicting that restart, so it's obviously worked out for him. It looks like Nat has actually made a mistake there coming out of that fast right-hander in the middle sector, and he's gone all the way from P3 to P9. Does he have wing damage? As we can see here, it looks like he's lost his front left end plate, so he's made a mistake. He's been pushing too hard, and he's gone from being probably in the best position in this race, using that alternate strategy to his advantage, to being in the worst position, and his race is now over. Well, not completely over. He'll still get 1 point if he finishes that race. And a fun little glitch there, he's not wearing any helmet. So as you can see, he's now down into P10, and Liam still in the lead of this race. It looks like pulling out a bit of a gap here to Wagner. If he can push hard enough while the DRS is disabled and possibly pull out of the DRS, that would really benefit him in this race. As you see, Nas now coming into the pit lane, and it really looks like he's making quite a big gap to Wagner behind. He's really pushing on these soft compound tires. He's made a 1 second gap to Wagner behind. Can he maintain this gap is the question. And looks like maybe he can. No, he can't. Coming into the middle sector now, the gap is now down to 9/10 as he sets a purple sector 1. Liam trying to go for the fastest lap here in the clean air with no pressure from behind. But the gap is now 9/10. The DRS will be enabled on this very straight, the very next lap. So he's still got a full lap to push nice and hard to break that DRS. But Wagner is just about staying within that DRS. The gap is now 9/10 as it was before. The gap's up to 1 second. It's fluctuating quite a bit, as you can see, really using the exit curve there, and coming into the final 2 turns now. And let's see how much ERS he's actually used. He's down to just 50% ERS. He's really pushing it hard, and he's using it once again. So as you can see, he's at the fastest lap of the Grand Prix on fresh softs, with not a lot of fuel on board and plenty of track evolution. He sets a 1:11.2, and that is going to be the fast lap of the Grand Prix. And he's only got so many more turns to actually push and break the DRS from Wagner behind. So let's see if he can actually get the job done. And it looks like Wagner is trying to gain a bit of time back now, as the gap is now down to 6/10, and it looks like he's going to be maintaining the DRS. So Liam's given it his all and tried to break the DRS to Wagner behind, but he's not been able to do it. So he now has to defend for the next 6 laps from Wagner behind, who has the DRS. And it looks like his red light is actually flashing, so he's been using a lot more ERS than Liam, and that is how he's been able to stay within the DRS of Liam ahead of him. It looks like Nobin has actually lost the DRS to Indigo there. Is he going to get it for the main pit straight here? And as we come on to the main pit straight, we ride on board, and as we look backwards, it looks like he just about got the DRS for this pit straight, so he's struggling to keep up with the top 4. It looks like DeGuido actually goes down the inside there into turn 1, and that is going to be his second incident of the race into turn 1, and it looks like he's taken Wagner out of the race. He's still in the race technically, but his chances of a race win are now over, and I'm sure the stewards are going to have a look at that one, because that is now the second time that he sent someone spinning in turn 1, and as you can see, Wagner's tires are overheated, and comes into turn 2 just a bit too fast, and spins again and breaks his front wing. That is a shame to see. He was going to win, challenge for the win in this Grand Prix, but he is now essentially out of the battle for the win, and that is definitely a shame to see. So I think he's just probably going to repair his wing and limp his way home for that single point in P10. But yeah, that's a shame to see, but I'm sure the stewards are going to have a look at that one, and I think DeGuido might be getting quite a few penalties at the end of the race, because that's not the first time he's had an incident into turn 1. Looks like Nobin has now officially lost the DRS of Indigo up ahead of him, so it looks like the top 3 are now just going to be battling it out for the race win here. Liam still has to lead the race with DeGuido right behind him, and Indigo in P3, and then we have another DRS train of Nobin, Black Mamba, RS Joshua, and Neil in P4, 5, 6 and 7. So The battle for the podium and the battle for the positions just outside of the podium all going on at this stage of the Grand Prix, and it looks like RS Joshua getting quite close to the back of Black Mamba, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty decent day for Mercedes here, with one of their drivers currently in P1 and the other one in P5. I'm sure they'll be happy with that result if they can keep it, because it does look like De Guedo is getting quite close to the back of Liam, and he's just 4 tenths behind, and he's going to have the DRS for this next pit straight, and will he be looking for a move into turn 1? And after what we've seen, hopefully not. So coming into turn 1 here, and he's getting quite close to the back, but he's not going to be close enough for a lunge into turn 1, so he's going to have to stick in the slipstream for now. It looks like Black Mamba actually decides to go down the inside of Nobin into turn 1, and both of their red lights are now flashing. They've been pushing very, very hard, but it looks like Black Mamba is now up into P4, and Mercedes currently having their best results in the positions that they're currently in, and both leading both of their DRS trains. Nobin getting quite close to the back of Black Mamba there coming into the middle sector, but Black Mamba maintaining P4. He's going to be under pressure once again coming into the next two DRS trains. So it looks like his red light is really flashing quite a bit, so he's obviously pushing very hard to try and get ahead, and it looks like a yellow flag in the middle sector. That looks like Wagner going slowly, but it looks like one of the cars has spun. It looks like RS Joshua in the Alpine has spun, and that is a shame to see. He was in that DRS train and the battle for P4, but he is now out. Well, not out of the Grand Prix. I keep saying out of the Grand Prix. He's still in this Grand Prix, but he's lost a lot of time and positions, and he's now down into P8 and looking at 4 points in this race. De Guedo into turn 1 isn't going to be making a move. Is Nobin going to be making a move into turn 1? No, he's not, so no moves into turn 1. We are now on lap 34, and we have not got many laps to go, and it looks like Liam is defending his position quite nicely. He still has a decent 40% ERS. The driver behind him, De Guedo, has about 30, with Indigo pushing the hardest, only having about 15%. So it looks like Indigo has been pushing quite hard to keep up with these guys, and a bit of a surprise after seeing his pace in the qualifying, but maybe struggling a bit more to hit those qualifying times lap after lap without using DRS. So Liam's still in the lead of this Grand Prix. De Guedo's just 3 tenths behind. With this DRS, he's just going to gain a little bit more, and I think he might be looking for a move into turn 1, or maybe he's going to continue to save up his ERS and stay behind Liam, and maybe go for a last lap attack. We'll have to see as we come out of the final turn. Does he go for a move? He sticks within the slipstream, and into turn 1, it does not look like he's going to be going for a move, so it looks like he's just going to be saving up the ERS. And it looks like Nobin has actually got the exact same idea, so Nobin is just going to stay behind Black Mamba for now, following very, very closely his rear wing, almost touching the rear diffuser, or his front wing almost touching the rear diffuser of Black Mamba. And I think De Guedo and Nobin both have a similar idea, but both of the Haas cars are now in a position. They're both third man in the DRS train, and they're going to have to start pushing hard this lap and make an overtake, because there's only so many turns to go, as we're currently on the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix, and we're about to start the final lap, and both these house cars are going to want to get a move on, but they're both in a very difficult position, with the driver ahead of him being able to defend with the power of the DRS. Indigo is getting quite close to the back of De Guedo, but once again De Guedo is going to have the DRS, so let's see if he can actually go for a move, and if De Guedo can go for a move too. So into turn 1 now. This is most likely going to be one of De Guedo's last chances. He tries to go for a move around the outside, and it looks like it's not going to work out, because Liam is going to maintain the position for now. No position changes in the top 3. Liam maintaining the lead in this race. There's going to be just one more DRS straight in this race. It's going to be De Guedo's last opportunity to actually overtake this race. So it looks like Liam's red light is flashing, De Guedo's red light is flashing, Indigo's red light is flashing. They are all pushing as hard as possible, but right now it looks like Liam is actually in the best position. Indigo following very, very closely to the back of De Guedo, and this is the final DRS straight now. Let's see what these drivers can do on the final DRS straight. Di Guedo getting quite close to the back. Can he get a good exit off of this turn? And he's now got the DRS wide open coming into the third sector. Is he going to go for a late lunge? No, he is not. He's going to stay behind Liam. And it looks like Liam might be able to maintain the lead in this race. Going back to the battle for P4, it looks like Black Mamba is maintaining P4 in this race. Does not look like Nobin was able to go for a last lap blunders. And it looks like Nobin has actually spun on the second last turn of the Grand Prix. Is he going to be able to maintain P6 as Liam crosses the line? He wins the Grand Prix, just 99 1,000ths over Di Guedo, and we move back to Nobin now. He's got no front wing. Is he going to be able to maintain P6 in this race as the run down to the line? It looks like yes, he's going to be able to maintain P6, but he loses out on P5, just pushing too hard off of the exit of the third, off of the exit of the first turn in the third sector. So he is going to fall down from P5 to P6. But Liam is your winner here at Zandvoort in the Netherlands for round 10. And that was a great race from him. He had total control after the first pit stop, going for that very aggressive undercut. And then the safety car closing down his gap quite a bit. But in the end, he still wins the Grand Prix. So a very dominant display from Liam. Di Guedo coming home in P2. I'm sure we might see a bit of a change in that position after the stewards have had their say, because he broke a bit late into turn 1, causing Indigo to spin, and then went for a bit of a send down into turn 1 on Wagner, who was competing for the win of that Grand Prix. Sadly finishes in P9 or P8 if I'm not mistaken. So there you go. Liam is your winner. Di Guedo finishes P2, and Indigo is the last man on the podium for Haas. Black Mamba finishes in P4 after a tough battle with Nobin, who sadly spun out there on the third last turn, but was able to maintain P6 in that race, which actually promoted Neil up into P5. RS Joshua manages to finish P7 after overtaking Stiggy, who got a 3-second time penalty for extending the track limits. Nat actually manages to get the fast lap of the Grand Prix and finishes home in P9, so that will be a solid 3 points for him. Wagner sadly finishing P10 that race. Sheep and Bavaji both DNFing from that race. So that is going to be it for Premier Sim Gaming League's Formula 9 round 10 here at Zandvoort. Hope you did enjoy, and be sure to come by next week at the same time, 8 o'clock BST or 9 o'clock CET, depending on where you live. But I hope you enjoyed that, guys, and I hope to see you next week.